We'll get started. I think how we'll do tonight's town hall meeting is I'll make some initial comments. Then I'm going to turn the microphone over to the Chief People Officer of Micron, April Arnzen, and she'll introduce the Micron team and make some comments from the Micron perspective. And then we'll read off the topics of questions that we've received. Many of the questions are repetitive because they're the big concerns. And we'll give you the answers to the best of our ability today, understanding that we're at the beginning of the process related to this mega project. So certainly I'm Ryan McMahon, the county executive. To my right is our town supervisor. Mr. Supervisor, do you want to introduce your board who might be here tonight as well?
I'm Michael Argano, and we have Councilor White here, Councilor Bacallo. I believe we have Councilor Carp and Councilor Marizio as well.
And to his right is the Economic Development Director, Bob Petrovich, and then members of our technical team on this project. Also, I saw 3 county legislators in the audience tonight, Legislator Tim Burtis, Legislator Cody Kelly, and I believe Legislator Mary Kuhn. So thank you all for coming here. But we're really excited. Everybody's heard the news. We collectively have worked very hard at the White Pine Business Park to prepare the White Pine site for this opportunity for decades. The county of Onondaga bought the land on Codnoy and 31 in 1999. And it was strategically purchased because of the utilities across the street. The electric and gas infrastructure there has the ability to produce mass amounts of power. Think of the city of Buffalo. That facility could power the city of Buffalo. So some of our founding fathers of the county at that time essentially made a very wise decision, but it took time, and it took time to understand the opportunity. As the opportunity was understood, not only can it produce the type of power that is needed for a high-tech manufacturer, but it has the ability to produce a lot of water, as we have a direct pipeline into Lake Ontario, as well as Otisco Lake as well. And so you have the water, you have the power, we have the wastewater capacity, which is critical for manufacturing and any development. And then essentially we got to a point in 2019 where we had some close calls with other companies. And what we learned in those close calls was that although the site could do a lot of things, the site was not large enough. And so we started working very closely to purchase more land. And as we continued to get bigger, we got more looks from the semiconductor industry. And we then knew very quickly we needed to make it a mega site. A mega site being a site over 1,000 acres that has the ability to produce the water, wastewater, gas, and electric. And as we were doing that, there began a national momentum to repatriate manufacturing in the semiconductor industry for chip manufacturing. We're very reliant in our everyday lives on this product. And as that was happening at the national level, it wasn't just 1 or 2 companies we were speaking to, it was 3 or 4. And certainly we were in the game for a lot of different projects, but we got the one we wanted. And the biggest one out there with the Micron investment. So we were really happy about that. And the site selection process was an amazing experience. First, it goes to the site. Does the site work itself? Then the company who's going to make their largest investment in any community wants to understand that community and really see themselves being a part of that community. And can you grow in that community? And can you produce the talent? Once you produce the talent, and can you retain the talent? Is it easy to recruit? And then, is the community ready to invest in the amenities necessary to be a growing community? Is the community ready for housing booms? And what comes with that? Is there enough room for supply chain companies to service the needs of the company? These are all questions that we had to answer. And once we went through that process and we thought we gave sufficient answers to the company, then it comes down to the third piece of the process, really, which is incentives. Can you compete locally against the other localities? Can you compete from a state level with the other states? And can you compete at the national level with other countries? And so in that process, we had to really go through and put together robust packages at the local level, at the state level, to make sure that we competed with states like Texas and North Carolina and Wisconsin and Michigan. And then certainly the CHIPS Act that was passed at the national level allowed us to compete internationally for the opportunity. And then once all those dominoes kind of fell into place, we went through, kind of final negotiations with Micron and got the job done. And so we're just ecstatic. What does this mean, right? What does this mean? What is the project? The project is, a two-phase project over 20 years. The first phase application is already being worked on, and the site's already being worked on cohesively between our teams and the Micron teams. But you're talking about 9,000 jobs just at Micron. You're talking about 40 to 60,000 jobs in addition to that, arguably, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, the companies, the states, or the locals. And you think about all the companies that have to supply Micron. These are real. I was just in California last week, and I saw Rob Beard here, meeting with the supply chain companies that work with Micron on a daily basis, and all of them are coming. The question is, what are they going to do here, and how much can they do here? And so it's just extremely exciting. Growth, population growth. With that level of job creation, you're going to be a growing community again in a way that we've never seen before. So it's a lot of planning that we have to do, and part of that we've already getting ourselves in front of it because the schedule works for us to get ahead of it. The planning in 2023, we're going to continue to get the site ready. In 2024, the company will start full-blown construction. Hopefully being finished in 2025, where tooling will then be installed, and then 2026 products will start to be made. So we're really, really excited. Other benefits of this. One of the questions was about a project labor agreement. There is a project labor agreement, and it is signed already. So all of our local trades and local businesses will have the opportunity to work on this construction project. This is a 20-year construction project. There will be trades members in this community that will enter a trade today and probably work at one job site their entire career. Just think about that. It's insane to think about that if you're in that industry. You're talking about good paying construction jobs, 5,000 construction jobs. So many that locally we won't be able to supply all the necessary jobs for this project. So you'll see other Northeastern companies and members of various trades coming in, but you'll also see some international specialty trades coming in for the specialties within the semiconductor industry. And that presents opportunities for housing opportunities and development housing opportunities. And think about all that money coming into the area and what that means for other local businesses and whatnot. So we're ecstatic about that opportunity as well. Saying that, I do want to talk about the right partner, because we spoke to other companies that were fantastic companies that we would be very lucky to host them. But during this process, when the companies were getting to know us, right from the get-go, things were different with Micron because they were asking questions about us. And not just about what was good about us, but about what our challenges are and how can they be part of the solution to that. And certainly outside of the jobs, which really would be enough in that conversation, the $100 billion investment they're making in our community, that's not enough. But they were talking about how can we get entrenched into your schools? How can we really be a partner and really help beef up your STEM and STEAM applications? And how can we invest in early childhood and invest in organizations like the MOST, which they already have? We just weren't having those conversations with other companies. That just doesn't happen when you talk to other companies. And furthermore, with the help of our federal and state team as well, overall, we negotiated with Micron the most robust community benefit agreement ever, where the company is going to be investing in our community well over $200 million outside of what their foundation may be doing. So it's just, these are just conversations with these other companies that just didn't happen. They didn't exist. And we knew we had the right partner. We knew this team fell in love with us, and we fell in love with them very early. And we're just so happy to have you. And who else has ever done this? What company has come to this community and sat and done, what is this, our 4th town hall meeting now related to this? This just doesn't happen. So at this point, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our good friend and our favorite new neighbor, April Arnzen.
Thank you, County Executive. I appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. My name is April Arnzen. I'm the Chief People Officer for Micron, and I'm also the president of the Micron Foundation. I've got 2 colleagues here to my left, Rob Beard, our General Counsel, and Bo Machayo, Micron Public Affairs. So I'm going to give them all the hard questions, and you guys can ask me the easy questions. But we are excited. And, you know, just as the county executive said, this is an incredible opportunity for us to come in and partner with the community and really set a strategy that will bring generational opportunities to this community, as well as lift up our company and create this great opportunity we have to bring manufacturing here to the United States. Some of you may know what semiconductors are. I think a couple of years ago, if you asked anyone what a semiconductor was, no one really knew. But through the pandemic, I think we all learned quickly how important semiconductors are to day-to-day life. There were many situations, supply chain disruptions, where you couldn't buy an automobile because there were not enough semiconductors, or you could not buy a refrigerator because there were not enough semiconductors. And through the last couple of years, we've also realized the importance of national security, and semiconductors are pretty critical there as well. So many countries, not just the US, many countries are now very interested in making sure they've got a stable, secure supply of semiconductors, and the United States certainly has taken a very aggressive position to make sure that the US doesn't fall behind in that regard. And with the passage of the CHIPS and Science Act, which you've probably heard about, as well as the green chips legislation here in New York, it really did give us the opportunity to come to Central New York and really set our roots down here and make a big bet on this community and a big bet for our company to make sure that we are ready for the growing demand over the next decade or 2. We expect, although certainly semiconductors do have some cyclicality to them, they do ebb and flow over the next 10 years. Semiconductor and specifically memory demand will grow, will double by 2030. So incredible opportunity, and we need to be prepared, and we want to partner with you to make that happen. You know, there were a lot of reasons why we chose Central New York, and it was a very, very intensive selection process. A lot of states really wanting to bring semiconductors to, you know, to their location. A lot of the reason that we came here was around the people in the community. Of course, the financials had to pencil out. Of course, we needed the water and the electricity and the wastewater and the land and all of the things that the county executive outlined. But we also need talent, and there is a rich talent population here, a great talent population both in rural communities, underrepresented communities. There's a great education ecosystem to help skill that talent, whether that's K through 12 and exciting new STEAM school opportunities that are coming here. Community college, you probably read and heard that we are partnering with OCC and other local community colleges to stand up training programs that will help skill workers for our jobs. And 4-year institutions also incredibly important, and there's a great ecosystem of those 4-year institutions in this region. It's also about the rich veterans population that is here. And of course, Syracuse University is a hub for veterans retraining to prepare veterans who are transitioning out of military service into corporations and jobs, and we'll leverage, of course, that pipeline and leverage those training programs as well. It's also really, really important to us that there, is the community and the livability for our employees. We believe when we come into a community, we need to think holistically around how we invest in communities. We need to, as the county executive said, not only just attract people, but we need to retain them, and we want them to stay here and stay at Micron and stay in the community and really be part of the community that's here. And there is a great opportunity for us to partner. Public and private partnerships will be key to really tackling this great opportunity and all of the challenges that come with it. We know there are going to be lots of challenges, but really what made our decision even more comfortable for us is we know we've got partners on the other side and we can tackle those challenges together. We have a common vision. We have shared values. Our company values very much aligned to this community values, and there is a lot of tenacity here to go and tackle these tough challenges, a lot of focus on people. And so we just felt like this was the right place for us. And so we chose Central New York. And now we're excited. We're here talking to you to understand how we move forward. And we know we don't have all of the answers, but we know with our partnership, we will come to the right answers and we will build a great strategy. And as the county executive said, this is a little bit of a non-traditional approach for companies. Our first, shovels won't be in the ground for another year. Our facility won't be open for a couple of years, but we're here today. And we're going to keep coming back because we need to understand how we can help support this community and how we can make our operations successful. So we look forward to this conversation tonight and many more conversations in the future. But I hope you'll find we are very open. We are listening. We want to partner. We want to solve these challenges together and really uplift our company, of course, but also uplift Central New York. So with that, I think we'll go into questions.
So we'll go. So I know this is hard to believe, but most of the questions are related to traffic. I'm ready for this one. In these answers, I think will apply to whether we're talking about Route 31, whether we're talking about 11 Verplank. Okay. Right now, and my technical team is allowed to correct me if I get something wrong. Normally, if they corrected me, they might risk being fired. But this is important we get this right. So right now, as part of any economic development project in the state of New York, you have to go through what's called an environmental review process, and you have to study the impacts of the project. In this project, we actually go through two distinct processes: an environmental review at the state, and then what's called a NEPA review at the federal level, which is really important to make sure that the company can receive the federal benefits related to the CHIPS Act. So what do we study in this? We study all sorts of impacts. The main impact certainly is traffic. Certainly you have to, the site does have some wetlands on it. We have to put forward a wetland mitigation strategy related to that, and that needs to get approved by the Department of the DEC at the state level and the EPA at the federal level. But traffic is a challenge. And what we also know is traffic isn't a challenge because of Micron, specifically in Cicero. Traffic is a challenge today. And so the big bottlenecks, because I know Cicero very well, is 31 and 11. And so that's challenges today. And so the state of New York owns Route 31 and they own Route 11. So the reality is, and this is just the hard truth, if it wasn't for Micron, the traffic issues today would not be addressed probably any time in the near future. It's just the hard truth. And if the state DOT commissioner was here today, she'd probably agree with me. So what this project is now forcing everyone to do is we have to study the project, study what it looks like with one fab, study what it looks like with two fabs, 3 fabs, 4, 5, and maybe even 6. And then based off of that traffic count, we then have to look at what the proposed mitigation is for and traffic improvements are. So we did a generic environmental review on a generic prospect already. And that has given us a head start for what we are going to have to do related to traffic. The County of Onondaga owns Caudnoy Road. We're going to have to make some improvements to Caudnoy Road. But more importantly, this is going to tell the state of New York what they need to do with 31, what they need to do with 11, and then maybe 481, maybe 81. But we cannot complete that environmental review until we get the federal guidelines from NEPA, and then we are going to move forward with that process cohesively. So what does that mean? That means that we have our own engineers, the county IDA, which owns the site. The company, Micron, has hired their own engineers and their own technical team, and then they're going to work through and study and come to an agreement, and then the regulating bodies have to agree that our solutions to the project pass muster. And so the good news is, because of Micron, the traffic issues will get solved. But will they get solved right away? No. They'll be phased in as the phased in development happens. And we'll be able to speak more coherently to what the actual mitigation is as soon as we're allowed to go back and reaffirm the data that we have for seeker and for NEPA. So we'll come back, because I know this is the big one, and we'll have another one of these meetings, and we will show you what is going to happen, and it will be the County of Onondaga and the state of New York, because we own the infrastructure, and we'll talk about when it's going to happen. We're just not ready for that today, because we can't essentially move forward with that until we get the federal rules for NEPA as well. Bob, how did I do?
I would give you an A.
Okay, thank you.
I better speak into the mic. That would be an A.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Davis or Neil Webb, anything else you want to add?
The only thing I would add is on the traffic study that was done previously and the employment numbers that you mentioned earlier, those are shift numbers. So it's not like everyone's going to the site at one time, et cetera. So one of the things that will be worked through is Micron and their team will develop, a timeline throughout the day of a 24-hour day as to when people will be coming to the site and going to the site, including employees, including contractors, and including construction. And then that will be factored into the traffic model that will examine where mitigation and mitigation is improvements, right? It's improvements to intersections, it's improvements to on-ramps and off-ramps, it's improvements to flow of traffic. And so all of that goes into the traffic model that ultimately, as Ryan said, DOT and at the federal level will have to review and sign off on.
Okay, so the next question, and again, we can come back to that if people at the end, if we get through these questions and folks want to come up and ask a couple more questions related to that, we'll do our best to answer specifically, but we have to be very, very careful that we coordinate both reviews. So part of our work at the state level is kind of on pause till we get guidance from the federal government later on. Where is the $10 million, or 10 million gallons of water coming from geographically? This is the question. The answer is Lake Ontario. So Lake Ontario will be servicing the daily water flow for the White Pine site, as it does for most of the town of Clay and the town of Cicero. That one's pretty easy. Questions related to, is there an agreement to return funds expended if there's a cancellation of the plan? I'm assuming of the project. How this works is most of the benefits that you have read about are performance benefits. So it's after the job is created, right? From the county standpoint, we're giving a payment in lieu of tax agreement, a pilot on the real estate. There's no benefit ever given if the real estate is never built out. And that doesn't mean they don't pay real estate taxes. That means there's a schedule. They'll pay more real estate taxes on day one that are already there. Some of the other investments that happen are from the technical teams, right? And the company is already agreed to pay for the technical teams that are working on their project. Micron has already invested more in the community than anyone else ever has. They've already made commitments to invest in OCC, and they've made commitments to $5 million, $10 million in STEM and STEAM education. A venture fund for small businesses. They've already outlined this. And these dollars are for money for the most, the YMCA for early childhood initiatives and childcare. These are money that's already flowing into the community. And so, but the benefits that you've heard about have not flowed back to the company. Those will flow back to the company when the jobs are created. So there really isn't a lot of upfront capital that we've put forward related to this. The county of Onondaga has put a lot of money into the site to get it ready. I have every confidence in the world that this project's going to move forward, and that it's going to move forward in a very big way for 2 phases over 20 years. In the event it didn't, we had the best site in the country. We'll get another one. It's just that simple. We have the best site in the country. So, but Micron's here already spending money. I feel pretty good that they're going to be wanting to recoup that money and build here. So I know that some are worried about that because of the last, I'd say 20 or 25 years, we're used to getting bad news with big companies. That was yesterday. That's not where we're going anymore. So as I've said many times, we kind of had a chip on our shoulder in this community because we've seen companies come and go, and we've had close calls. Time to brush off that chip. And only chip we're thinking about moving forward is the memory chip, because that's where we're moving forward in a big way. Next question. This is a technical question, so I'm going to let the team answer this. Trees need to be down before April 15th or after October 15th. This is correct. When is the groundbreaking? I believe, are we still looking at some site removal at the end of 23?
The expectation would be that we would be in a position to begin some site work in the fall of 2023, over that winter in advance of real construction getting going on April 1st or thereabouts in 2024.
And I believe this regulation is because of our friend, the Indiana bat. Is that what this is?
We do have the Indiana
We
bat.
do host a bat from Indiana, which means that we can't do certain things between April 15th and October 15th every year. So hopefully we answered that question for you. There was a question, the status of the project labor agreement. Greg Lansett, the head of our builders trades, is here, was a tremendous partner, did an excellent job negotiating with Micron on a project labor agreement, and that is done. So that is another huge benefit to our company, or to our county here as well. Yes. Yeah. Do you want to?
There's a question about housing, and it's around housing construction workers. But as you can imagine, we're thinking about how we ensure there's housing for our contract workers as well as our employees. And the way we think about how we prepare for this operation is, of course, we need skilled workforce. But if we don't think about some of the other challenges that our workforce will encounter, we won't be able to attract and retain the talent that we need. So we have to think about housing. We have to think about childcare. We have to think about transportation. Not that we have to go solve all of those on our own, but we need to be thinking about those challenges, and we need to be partnering with the right individuals and entities to solve some of those challenges. In our community investment framework, we committed to doing a housing study. So we're initiating a housing study so that we can actually understand which ways might be most beneficial for us to influence or partner to solve some of the housing challenges. So we're very focused on it. We don't have the answers, but we'll work with a third party to identify the opportunities that we have on housing. And then as the county executive said, we're investing in other things as well, not just housing, childcare, of course, partnering with the YMCA. We'll also have childcare facility on our site available to our employees. And then we're looking at, again, other challenges that our employees might experience. So although you'll hear a lot about education and training, we are thinking about more broadly some of the other things that we know our employees will need to make sure that they're successful and able to stay at our facility.
Yeah, and on the topic of housing, I met this morning with our planning commissioner and members of the town of Cicero's town board and their professional teams, and the town of Clay's town board and their professional teams. And so the county of Onondaga has actually not had a comprehensive plan for 30 years. And so we've been undertaking a comprehensive plan for our community, with White Pine being a big part of that. And we've been going through that process for 2 years. And it's been a bottoms-up process, going into local communities and asking them, what do you want your community to look like? Not telling you what your community should look like. And so, what kind of industrial growth do you want? What kind of commercial growth do you want? Residential growth? Here are the trends that we're seeing nationally, and this is where things are going. Things have changed when it comes to housing today than it was 12 months ago. Interest rates are at 7% compared to 3%. So the affordability is different, right? So what we have done is our countywide plan will be ready for the legislature to vote on in the beginning of 2023. And so that will be the county policy, and that will be our roadmap from a region. But each community still should have their own comprehensive plan. And that should be the blueprint for development in your communities. And so when a developer comes and wants to do something, they have that level of guidance. And we talked about design standards. And that, and I asked the two towns that I met with today to really look and reassess what your design standards are. We aren't bottom feeding here. We're not looking for this commercial growth or that commercial growth to meet a tax-based need to cover the bills anymore. The investment is coming. We need this to be done in a smart way. So the county is going to pay for a comprehensive plan for the town of Cicero and the town of Clay. And specifically, we're going to then look into waterfront communities about their own plan at Three Rivers in Clay and in Brewerton to build off the work that's being done in the hamlet of Brewerton. So housing will be a big piece of that, but we're going to talk a lot more about planning, housing, commercial development, because this is something that we have to work together cohesively on moving forward. Another important topic that has been talked about, and the question is here, what about transportation? Transportation infrastructure for workers getting to and from the site. And certainly any part of a selection process like this, even this was a big issue with Amazon as well, when they came, is you got to have public transportation to and from the site. And so working with Centro, there will be transportation to and from the site for each shift. But we are looking at bus rapid transit for not just areas inside the city, but we're looking to have potentially the Micron site be involved with that. And from a long-term planning standpoint, we are also looking to study bus rapid transit on the Route 31 corridor specifically, which should also help for transportation to and from not just the site, but we got to think about this more as a hub, all the supply chain companies that will be there as well. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm going to let this one go to April. There's recognition of the investment in the local schools and summer chip camps. But what about opportunities for our adult learners?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and as I mentioned, getting the workforce ready is going to require that we really do think about training and education at all levels. And of course, we are investing a lot in K through 12 to make sure that we've got the workforce of the future, but that's not the only investment. Actually creating pathways for adults who maybe have already entered the workforce and they want to switch careers, or maybe they're just getting started, also incredibly important. And so that's why our partnership with OCC and other community colleges is incredibly important. We're also, of course, going to look at other training centers in the region and see how we can invest in those training centers so that they can get some of the basic curriculum developed in their facility, so that maybe an adult learner who isn't ready to go to community college can actually go to a training center instead. So we're trying to create many different opportunities and pathways for people, because some people don't want to take a traditional pathway, and that's okay. So we'll have a variety of different options for people already in the middle of their career, towards the end of their career, any time in their career. If they want to switch and pursue one of our opportunities and career paths, there'll be a way for them to get that education and training.
Okay, question related to the meeting. Will it be offered virtually to other community members? I know this is being recorded. Is it being virtually right now? Okay, so it's going to be recorded. It's being recorded, so anybody, and then it will be posted on the websites. So anybody who's not here tonight can watch it and hear this. But we will be doing more of these town hall meetings, and obviously it's not possible for everybody in the community to come at all times, and for us to schedule this, with everybody's schedule for thousands of people. But we will be recording these, and when possible, doing them virtually as well. Let's see, property values, right? Well, I know there's some realtors here who could probably tell you why they're going to agree with me on this, but how will the chip fab affect our property values? Your property values are going to go up. That's just what's going to happen. Assessments have increased and value has increased over the last few years at rates we haven't seen. Before the Micron investment, we were a growing community, and housing stock was a challenge. Before this, we knew that the Micron opportunity was right on the doorstep when we asked the legislature to approve a $10 million housing incentive fund to help incentivize development. Think about the supply chain increases. These would be grants to help offset some of that, to spur more units. The idea was, in the short term, that it's going to help stabilize assessment growth and help provide more housing for the long term as well. But by no means will your property values be going down. They're going to go up, so your asset will be going up. We're already seeing it with land acquisition in a big way. And so will it get to residential property? Probably strategically closer to the site first. But as you see things happen in 2026, you see 3,000 or more Micron employees, you see another 10,000 supply chain employees and people coming into the community. Every corner of the community is going to feel the growth. And that's why we're having conversations with every one of our 19 towns. Within 19 towns, we have 15 villages, and we have the city of Syracuse. And we're asking them, what kind of growth do you want to see? How is it residential? Is it commercial and residential? Is it commercial, residential, and industrial? Because if that's the case, there's things you got to do. And you got to look at your planning and zoning requirements. You have to take a look at your infrastructure. You got to take a look at site assemblage if you're trying to land a supply chain company. These are all things that if you want to be in the game, you got to work with us, and we'll work to get you in the game. But your values of your property are going north.
Hey, Brian, I was just reading very long question.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
another question
Okay.
at
Yeah,
the,
go ahead.
towards the end about paid training opportunities. I want to highlight one more thing that we will stand up. We do have Micron apprenticeship programs, so it's an earn and learn program where people can be working while they're pursuing their training, and they would be a Micron full-time employee, so they would have compensation benefits, education assistance so that their tuition is paid, access to all of our amenities, including childcare and everything else that we offer our team members. So yes, we would have earn and learn programs for those adult learners.
This next question, I can answer it on behalf of the county and the IDA. Who is the civil design engineer? Our engineering team right now is Rambo, and then JMT is also on the team as well, related to traffic. I don't know. I know that Micron has hired 2 outfits, New York State outfits as well. I don't know their names, but that's where that stands. The question about supply chain, so the key to the supply chain is, and Micron's been a great partner in helping us know who their supply chain companies are, who are the companies that they need in close proximity, and getting us the information so that we can talk to them. We in Onondaga County are probably clearly most ready for this opportunity because we've known about what we've been doing, and we've acquired a lot of strategic land for supply chain companies to be very close to Micron across the street. But there's going to be opportunities for other communities, and this is a regional solution for this great opportunity. So I would encourage economic development officials of other counties to reach out to Bob and talk to Bob about what you have and what you have related to sites with acreage and wastewater, water, power. So when we are looking at an opportunity and there is not a solution, that we show them the site in your community as well. Because again, we understand that we're not going to get every deal. I just want almost every deal. Okay. And I'm not gonna get. I think it's very clever for this county IDA official from another county to be here tonight. That's very clever. I might try to hire you. Yeah. So, saying that, we're kind of out of specific questions, but we want to answer questions people have from the audience. We just ask that you be nice to us when you come up because we haven't screened you already. So we have microphones there, and here and there. Yes, sir.
Glad you guys are here today. Turn up the mic. Public's got to be heard. Thank you. Listen, I hope we go through with this. The first thing we got to do is to try to re-educate some American. I hope this gentleman here who's involved in the, let's say, HR, I hope you talk to the Post Standard. I hope you talk to Channel 9 News. I hope that we start to re-educate people as to what's going on. China, I don't know how many people here understand what lithography is and how it works. How many people here know how photonics work, which is going to be competition against this?
Our students are raising their hands over there,
Okay,
so
see,
that's a
not
good
too
sign.
many.
That's a good.
And I'm hoping that over the next few years that the Post Standard and people here are going to call the Post Standard tomorrow morning and ask them to start running better articles. I don't want to see an article about Adam Weisman and Skinny Atlas building a pool. I want to see what China is trying to do to make Micron fail. There's many. I don't know who you guys compete with. I know that Tesla has their chips with someone else. I know you guys are going to be competing against numerous. I mean, there's Sam, there's MSLL. TS. What is it? TSLM.
TSMC.
Another. I was wondering, is Micron going to be buying its lithography machines from the Netherlands? I mean, you guys do buy, right? And of course, I hope everyone here knows that the United States told them not to sell China any chips because of Huawei, right? So of course, Huawei is going full blast in trying to overthrow all this technology, and they're doing pretty damn good on it. So you could almost argue that in 4 years from today, this place could not be produced because they're not going to be making the chips that other people are going to be needing because China can make them. South Korea can make them. I hope everyone here knows that the 5 top exporting countries of technology The United States isn't one of them. You know this. It's number 6. So we got a lot of competition, and the fact this country is more interested in gender studies than it is engineering, we better start changing that, and I'm expecting our news media to start covering that, number 1. And number 2, I'm hoping everyone here is mad at Schumer, Gillibrand, Warner there, and with Sanders. They all want EVs in the northeastern part of the United States, but not one of them came to the shareholders meeting at Tesla and asked them to build a tech or a gig factory here, which perhaps could be buying some of the products that you people make. It's amazing that not one politician in the northeastern United States took Tesla up on that competition to build the batteries and let's say their new the number 2 they want to make. And I'm amazed that no one, not even the governor, even talks about that, yet we all want electric cars in the northeastern part of the United States, but not one of them does a goddamn thing about it.
That's
Okay?
a great point,
That's all I
sir.
want to say.
Thank you.
You guys have done a good job. Keep it going because this is going to be one hell of a race for you guys. So I hope you're the best. Thank you for listening.
Thank
You're
you.
cheaper than my psychiatrist.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Good.
I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you because the investment that is coming into our community is something that we can't even grasp from the true concept here because the economics and the opportunities that are coming are very reminiscent of post-World War II for Central New York. That was the last time this region saw what is coming here and the potential. So thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you. I don't want to talk about the election cycle, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Good evening. This is probably a common question for April and her team. But first off, just as a resident of Cicero with 3 children here in this district, it's just such great excitement and the conversations around the dinner table and what my kids seem to know that I have no idea about and what they're bringing forward. It's just exciting. It's such a great to be able to have discussions and be proud. And I would say also of them, just the pride that they're bringing to being a part of this community. So thank you for that. But professionally, I'm the principal of a STEM high school in Oswego County. Your neighbors to the north,
Yes.
very close neighbors to
Yes.
your north.
I heard like 5 miles from our
Yeah.
site.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm still learning my geography.
Very
but I'm
good,
getting
very
it, yeah.
good. No, that's great. So we, one of the things we do is I go around and I recruit students, 8th grade students into the program. And we have 9 school districts. And I want to thank you also for making my job a heck of a lot easier this year for recruitment. But I have 2 questions related to K through 12. First one is approximately how many of the jobs are being projected that will require just high school or 2-year degree credentials?
Yeah, our population, our manufacturing population is usually about 50-50 technician versus engineer. And technicians are more suited towards those 2-year degrees or military experience or some other experience. And then with a little bit of training, they can move into the job. So a pretty significant portion of the jobs would have requirements around 2-year programs or some certifications and experience. So it's a reasonable amount of the population.
Great.
But of course, we want to make sure we've got pathways so that even those folks, and they might start with Micron as a technician, they may not want to stop there. And so making sure they can go back and get more education and move into engineering roles or into other roles that are facilities, also how we're architecting our strategy.
Great. I've read up and I'm very excited about the chip camps that were mentioned earlier before.
Yep.
I think that's great. I really look forward to having those not only in Onondaga County, but bringing those up to the students up in the northern. The other thing that I would ask is too, and I'm curious to know is, we're looking at, like right now, we're bringing in students that are coming into 9th grade next year. Those are really going to be the
Yes,
first group
those
of
are our
students that are
place.
going to be
Yep,
with them.
yep.
So how do I want to get my staff, my technology teachers, my engineering teachers, I want to get them the tools to be able to start to train those students in this area. One that, to be honest, they're don't have much of a background. So I wonder, is there opportunities for professional development for K through 12 teachers as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I walked in with the superintendent, he'd already met, yes? Already
Bowles,
met
yep.
Robert Simmons from my team. I'm surprised Robert hasn't gotten to you yet, but he's covered a lot of ground, really understanding how we can partner. And he is standing up a program that is focused on the educators, creating some fellowships. We're going to do some externships where we can bring educators to one of our other facilities for the summer, along with, our big intern pool. We'll have some teachers as part of our intern pool for the summers. And then looking at other ways we can bring information to the educators. We know, I was talking to some folks earlier, we know that it's one thing to get to the kids, but if the parents and the educators don't quite know what those opportunities look like and what the skills required are, then, kids will fall out of that pipeline. So incredibly important. Love to hear your thoughts and ideas, but we do have some ideas and some initial programs going.
Great, thank you. April and your team, welcome to the region.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done. Why don't we go, you were here first, sir, then we'll go over here.
As you can tell, I'm a senior citizen, and
And you want a job at Micron? We'd love to have you.
I also want to thank the commissioner for the $200 he recently sent me.
Oh, you're welcome. You got that check, did you?
I have a very simple question, and I know things aren't very far along as far as the roads and things. But I live south of Route 31, just off from Codnoy Road, and there's an intersection with 481 where you can get off from 481 onto Codnoy Road. Is that intersection envisioned as being redone so you can get on and off both ways? And is there going to be improvements to Codnoy Road between there and 481? Because it seems to me that makes more sense than doing a lot of things in Cicero.
Yeah, so I think from the long term, larger improvements, there is likely to be a 481 solution that you're referencing, or a 81 exit, additional exit, Mud Mill Road potentially. And there will be Codnoy Road improvements, I know. Do we know specifically what those are yet, or no?
Lane widenings, turn lanes, and intersection improvements.
Yeah, I think it's about $5 million worth of improvements to Codnoy. But I think overall, you hit one of the things that the engineers are studying really hard. And those are probably either that solution or an 81 solution will probably be the big ticket traffic items that will help de-densify those areas.
Thank you, and I just wish I could live long enough to see all this.
I'm betting on you.
Yep.
Sir.
Probably wasn't going to say this, but I am also a senior citizen. I try not to look at. I have a couple questions that I didn't understand. Probably a lot of others don't understand either. One of them is I guess I have never heard of the Indiana bat.
The Indiana bat. The question is the Indiana bat. Yeah.
Indiana bat. Can
Yep.
you hear me now? Okay. What is that?
It's a bat. It's from, my guess is the origin is from Indiana. And it's been labeled an endangered species. So basically, you literally, if you had a project, cannot take down trees certain times of the year, whether or not there's an Indiana bat in that tree at that moment or not, because it might be in the area. So that's literally what that question referred to, is that there's a bat that's an endangered species.
I believe I have a few of those behind the chimney on my house.
Yeah.
They eat 1,000 mosquitoes a night.
So it seems like they have a purpose then, right?
Absolutely. I love my bats.
There you go.
The other thing that you mentioned was that Micron is paying for the technical teams. Can you
Correct.
tell us what kind of technical teams we have and what they're made up of?
Yeah, so what you have to do for the site preparation, right? So they're paying for the county, IDA's, technical teams. There's a lot of work that believe it or not. I know there's two lawyers on the dais here with me, but the lawyers, there's a lot of legal work in this process, making sure that everything's done legally.
I hope so.
So that's one bill on a technical team. There's an engineer with us today that's done a lot of the legwork, and now that engineer needs to review and work with Micron's engineers to prove that the solutions to traffic and some of the other environmental issues that may arise meet the law. So it's not just Micron's engineer saying, we're good, right? Our engineer, because we own the site, has to say, we agree we're good. And now you advance that to the state of New York. They then review it. The federal government, they review it. So those are your main technical members of the team. And so because this is a project for Micron, Micron pays that bill for us.
That's mighty nice of you.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of other pilot programs that didn't quite work like that.
Yep.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, can you hear me? Welcome to the community. It's incredible what is going to be happening here. I've grown up in this area and actually in 2 homes within a 3-mile radius of the site, and I've seen changes in my lifetime, but what's coming is, hard to imagine. I am kind of regretting that just this past June, I retired from North Syracuse School District because, again, the opportunities of what, might be happening, I wish I was there to take care of those. One of my questions is, as excited as the community is, and we know that the growth is good for the community, inevitably there are casualties that happen. I know people on Burnett Road were not happy. There's compensation generally that happens, but how are people notified when their property may have to be changed?
Yeah.
How are they notified individually? Is it a community meeting? How do those things happen?
Yeah, so that's the question for me, not for Micron. So the reality is we had multiple meetings with the community 2 years ago when we knew that, and Micron, we weren't even talking to Micron at this point, when we knew we had a historical investment on the line. And we started the process. Probably we caught some folks off guard a little bit when people were, reaching out and saying we were interested in buying your home, and so then after that, essentially I had a meeting just like this, where I looked at everybody in the meeting and said, there's a high probability if I'm going to get one of these companies, I'm going to need to buy your home. And I had people who were upset with me that day, and I understood they were going to be upset with me that day. But in my role, when you're talking about transforming the community at large, those are the conversations you have to have sometimes. And most government officials wouldn't have those face to face. They'd give them a letter or whatnot. So at that point, as the process went on, we started negotiating with every single household. And we negotiated in good faith and came to purchase agreements and options where every single household got well above market value for their property. And so they were compensated. And at some point, I'd like to do more to acknowledge the residents of Burnett Road, maybe with some green space and whatnot, because without them, we wouldn't be here, right? There's probably 1,000 different stories of things that happened in this process, and if it didn't happen a certain way, we wouldn't be here today, including those folks coming to agreements with us to buy their property, because that's what was needed to land the largest investment in the history of the country.
And will that process be the same for any future?
Yeah. So right now we're still communicating with a couple property owners, not necessarily on Burnett Road, that we're interested in buying their property. And again, if any of these, all these owners can tell you the same thing, that they did very well financially. And I understand the initial shock value of having your county executive say he wants your home for a project that isn't signed yet. I understand that, and I appreciated that, and I sat in front of those neighbors many, many times and took a lot of heat, but I would do it again. Because look what happened from it. So we never exercised eminent domain, even though we had the legal right to. We negotiated with every property owner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we got in the back.
Yeah, question for you. I'm actually from Madison County. I'm currently the Director of Codes for the City of Oneida, but I was also Safety Director for the chip plant up in Malta when that was being built. So I know what impact
You
this has.
emailed me.
I did.
Yep.
So first off, I want to say thank you for your hard work for getting Micron. And Micron, thank you for choosing Central New York, because I know it's going to impact all of us, including myself in Madison County. So I got a couple construction questions for you. And what the initial phase of the build out, how many buildings and what's the total square footage?
What was it, 800,000 square feet?
Well, there's
600,000.
600,000 per fab.
Yeah, 600,000 square feet per fab.
Clean room.
Clean room space,
Yeah,
clean room
clean
space. Yeah.
And during the peak of the initial phase, how many tradespeople at one time do you anticipate or estimate being there?
The estimated numbers are 5,000 construction workers on site for 20 years.
But I'm talking about at one time. I'm guessing that's over
5,000.
20 years? 5,000 at one time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. Next question over here.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for all the hard work that's made this possible. I work for On Point for College. We're a college and career access and success not-for-profit located in Syracuse and Utica. And my question is for the Micron Foundation team. What is your plan to assist organizations like us who help underserved communities get into and stay and succeed in college and post-secondary opportunities and continue in career? And then I have my second question is for the county executive team. What's your plan to assist the people who own historic infrastructure in the villages, towns, and cities in central New York, which it might be in poor repair or need a repair? What's your plan to help those owners bring those properties back so that they can be part of the new housing boom?
Yeah, so first off, we're one of your largest funders. We're big fans of On Point for College. We'll let April, I think you should really get to learn a lot what they do. Secondly, so we talked about planning, and I talked specifically to Cicero and to Clay, because that's where we stand, right? But when it comes to investments, we're working with leaders across the county to look at tier one investments and planning communities for the opportunities today. But as part of our countywide comprehensive plan, housing in neighborhoods means kind of working to retrofit neighborhoods that are no longer in the 21st century. Essentially, there's a lot of communities that were built over the years where it made sense at the time, but as things have gone on, times have changed. So we're going to be working with all the various municipalities and eventually getting to the grassroots in those neighborhoods. But we continue to make investments in Town and Main Street. In our budget this year, we allotted $5 million for Town and Main Street grants, where it's a competitive process with communities and they get back to us. In addition to that, we fund the land bank, for example, which goes through and works in the city of Syracuse and some of our suburban communities to knock down dilapidated housing or rehabilitate housing. So this is a space that we're really getting into, and we're going to let our county plan guide us. And that's going to be the roadmap that will guide our investments, but also should be the roadmap for some of these municipalities to work with us on future investments. And the nice thing about this is this, and I'll share you with this. The day after we announced the Micron opportunity at Syracuse University, when we had an agreement, our credit rating agency, Moody's, reached out to us. And think of your own personal credit score when you're going to get a loan or borrow money. The county of Onondaga has the same. We have Moody's and S&P. And every time we go to borrow, which is usually for infrastructure, they give us a score. And based off of your score, you get lower interest rates or higher interest rates. So Moody's called us up, and we weren't looking to borrow any money. So we're like, "What? Why are you calling?" We're a little alarmed, but they said, "We're going to put out a new analysis on your previous bonds that you had." And we said, "Okay," to their investors. And what they did is they changed the trajectory of our county the day after Micron. And they said, before we saw you growing at 2.5% to 3% per year for 20 years. Now we see you growing at 8.6% per year for 20 years. Now, if we are growing at 8.6% a year for 20 years, what does that mean to you? It means A, we're going to continue to cut your property taxes like we have for the last 10 years. And B, we're going to continue to invest in neighborhoods like we have since I've been county executive. So April.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you more. As I mentioned, in order to make this a win for the entire community, we've got to open up additional pathways for people to get the education and training. I think I mentioned we're meeting with Syracuse Education Opportunity Center tomorrow to discuss exactly that. Love to connect with you as well, because it sounds like we've got another partnership opportunity. So that is absolutely part of our strategy, and let's talk after.
Thank you very much.
Next question.
Hi, so I would kind of like to piggyback off of that question and maybe expand on it a little bit, and go over some of the things that I've heard a little bit on a superficial level tonight. So one of those things is housing and housing stability. Historically, Syracuse, which is within the county of Onondaga, has topped the charts in generational poverty, segregated poverty, and childhood poverty. So I want to know specifically what programs that you can bring into the community to create housing stability for those children that's going to allow them to go to school and feel fed and well rested enough to learn some of these STEM programs effectively enough to grow up and be effective workers in your plants. Because from what I've heard tonight, I don't see that long term. I hear you going into some of like the suburban schools, which we're in one of them right now, which is actually one of the biggest suburban schools in the county. It's number 2 population-wise to the city of Syracuse. So, and I've worked within both school systems. So I'm just wondering what specifically we can do as a community in relationship to Micron to ensure some of those things.
Let me start, and then April can go specifically what they're doing. So it's everything you talked about, much of what you talked about is true, right? But that's not Micron's job, though, right? It's not their job to come into the community and solve a generational poverty where we're now talking about 3rd and 4th generations, right? Micron presents the opportunity out of that scenario, okay? So we have made, in every stat you had related to poverty countywide, right? Countywide, poverty, there's 15,000 less families in poverty now than there were in 2010. Even childhood poverty consistent in the city of Syracuse, even though it's still too high, right? It is going lower, right? But that's they're part of the solution. That's not their problem. It's our problem, right?
Right.
And so they can talk specifically. Specifically, we're in a town hall meeting here because this is a host community. We have done a lot of meetings in the city of Syracuse, and actually, if you talk to the suburban school districts, they're mad that they've talked to the city more than they've talked to them, just to tell you the truth. So the reality is that there has never been a company more committed to working with us on this. Part of our countywide strategy is a countywide STEAM school in the city of Syracuse, run by the city of Syracuse, but will take in suburban children where the core focus is STEM, right? That's the core focus. and to prepare these students for the next level, whether it's a technician position, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, research and development, or whatnot. But before, the STEAM school was online before Micron, but we never had a Micron sitting at the end of the pipeline, because the way out of poverty is a job. And that's the job, even though we were growing jobs and we had better jobs and more than we've had, we never had this. So we need to look at Micron as the solution to these challenges. And how do we make sure, and these are where your government leaders need to step up. And again, I'm the county executive, so I'm one of them. How do we make sure that every corner of the community feels part of this opportunity? And that's city kids, which I was one of them. That's suburban kids, and that's rural kids, right? The rural community as well, because there's severe concentrated poverty in rural communities as well. But April can talk about their specific efforts.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it well. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, as we prepare for this growth here, we're thinking holistically. We are thinking beyond just education and training, as I said, and we are thinking about what other barriers will exist or do exist for these individuals, for their families, that we need to help solve. And certainly we can't solve all of them on our own, but we want to be part of it. And that's why we're having this conversation. So things like childcare, so that moms and dads can work and put food on the table and pay for housing, things like transportation, all very important and part of our strategy, as well as investing in the K-12 and other education and training programs. So we are absolutely thinking about it holistically, because we know we can bring all of the STEM education to the schools, but if kids are hungry or they don't have a place to live, they can't learn. So absolutely part of our strategy, and exactly why we're making the initial investments that we've already announced, as well as working with the community to identify future investments.
And I'll highlight two things that we negotiated in the community benefit agreement that are really intentional, that have never been done. First, Micron has agreed to minority, women-owned business, and veteran-owned business goals, meaning that in the construction project, which is a 20-year construction project, they have goals of 30% of the vendors have to be minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses. Unheard of in a private sector project. We do that in county government public projects, unheard of for a private sector project. Second, and probably more powerful, because this company is going to be here for a long time, is they've agreed to, in their operating budgets, to continue to use a certain percentage of their operating budgets with minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. That's creating an ecosystem intentionally that directly will go into underserved communities right away, outside of the investments made there. So again, this company, it's not their job to solve these problems for us. They're part of the solution, and it's our job in these positions to leverage this opportunity so that we can make huge progress. And we will. Watch.
Oh, I will.
Next question.
I don't know quite where to start. I'll start with your comments about Burnett Road. I just chatted with a woman. Your timeline is not accurate, and it's unfortunate for the people that lived on Burnett Road. It started with an anonymous letter from a realtor telling them to sell their house. The town of Clay supervisor didn't even know about those letters. And then the threats, the threatening phone calls, more threatening letters. And so don't be dishonest in saying that everything was so up
Ma'am,
board.
if you want to talk specifically about this, that's fine, but we're getting to the end of this, so if you could get to
I
your
know,
question.
you got to cut me off.
I'm not cutting you
So
off.
how
It's- yeah.
much has the town or county paid and put out for acquisition of those houses? What's the total?
We've invested millions and millions of dollars to acquire real estate for the White Pine opportunity.
You don't have an exact number?
No, and it's a moving figure as we close on property, but it's all public record as we close on property.
No, I figured you'd have the whole thing. So then, Micron, you also mentioned $100,000 was the average salary?
$108,000.
100 what?
8.
Oh, it's gone up. where's that number come from? What's
That
the
come-
high and what's the low?
Yes, well, that's the number that's given as an average salary on the application to the county IDA.
Oh, I thought it was an average.
That is the average salary.
So what's the high
Some will
salary?
make higher, some will make lower.
What's the highest they'll make?
Yeah.
Do you have a number?
We don't have that information right now. It'll be, there will be jobs above that number by quite a bit, and there'll be just some jobs below that number. But it's an average number, right? And
Yeah, but if
it's a
most
high average
people
number.
make 60,000, they're not going to be able to afford the housing costs that are going up. That's what I want to know. What's the number? What's the high and what's the low?
They haven't started.
We don't
hiring
have those
yet.
numbers at this time.
Yeah.
We don't have specific jobs posted. We don't have the job set here in this area.
Well, that's unfortunate. Because that's kind of where it all comes from.
Exactly.
And then the other question, well, then and then another one, if you're gonna have 2-year degrees and people might want to go on to engineering, do you offer educational reimbursement?
Yep, we offer tuition assistance up to $10,000 for people to go back to school, $10,000 per year for them to go back to school. And then, of course, if you work on a shift, we work around your schedule as much as we can so that people can take classes during that time.
Well, that's nice. Is there a limit? 10,000 a year?
10,000 per year is the limit. Yep, reimbursement.
5 years?
I mean, until you finish your degree, and then you can go back and get another one. So no, there's no
Okay.
lifetime limit to our education assistance program. And by the way, I'll call out, that is almost double from what other companies offer. The tax code, you only can write off up to $5,250. But at Micron, and you'll hear more about this and learn more about this, we are very invested in learning for our employees. So a couple of years ago, we doubled the education assistance.
That's nice. And then kind of tagging off some of the other people. You're in North Syracuse School District, which is the largest suburban school district. I'm a graduate of here. It's one of the best school districts. And you're focusing on here, and as somebody else said, are you focusing and getting to the city schools and pulling those kids that don't even realize, they're just like, just get me out of here, I just want to go, and not have a plan afterwards? Or is there a target and a more of a focus for that population?
Yeah, I think the county executive spoke to it. A lot of the conversation actually started with the city schools. Now we're out in suburban and rural communities. We will need so much talent. We cannot leave anyone out. So it's important for us to cover all of those school districts, and that's exactly what we're doing. But clearly our announcement around our $10 million investment in the STEAM school and other STEM programs is all right in the city.
Sir.
So I just wanted to say it's clear to me that Micron would grow and be successful without Onondaga County, but I don't think the reverse would be true. I don't think we would be seeing 60% population growth, 50,000 jobs without Micron here. So the question I wanted to ask is maybe kind of reversing it. What do you see as being maybe the challenges for the area for your success? Maybe like what are the hardest jobs when you build these types of fabs and getting them filled? And I was also curious from a technical perspective, like what's the lifespan of this chip fab? Maybe once you build it, how long do you think it will be technically valuable, before it's obsolete? Like how many years or decades?
I'm happy to. Yeah, I'll make some comments, and then some of my colleagues will make some comments as well. So the investment that we are making, once you make this kind of investment, you have to continually upgrade it. It's such a significant $100 billion over 20 years, very costly. And so once we build this facility and put the tools in, it would not make sense from a financial perspective to try to not keep keep it up. So, and the county executive talked about, we have basically a perpetual construction project, not just upfront construction, but ongoing construction all of the time, because our technology does change and does evolve, and we have to bring new equipment in and change, the electrical or the chemical or, systems and things like that. So it is ongoing, but it's such a significant investment. Once you put it here, you just don't move it. So really important. What was your first question again?
Challenges you still
Oh,
see
okay.
in this area for maybe
Yeah.
for businesses or citizens or problems filling jobs, that kind of thing.
I think the biggest challenge that keeps me up at night is just the scale. This is a massive facility requiring a lot of jobs. And of course, the Micron direct jobs, 9,000, that's going to be quite a challenge, but that's just the Micron direct jobs. And so all of the construction, all of the contractor jobs, all of the service jobs, I think this is going to certainly transform the community, but there will be challenges that we encounter to get to that kind of scale. And is the community ready for that? Are we ready for that? That's probably my biggest concern.
This might be a stupid question, but is this a bigger scale than Micron has done other places? Is this
Yeah,
a
this
new
will be our
level of
largest
development?
U.S. Facility and actually our largest fab. Yes.
Really?
Yep. When it's all done. Of course, it's going to happen gradually. It's not all going to happen in 2 years, but when it's all done, yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Welcome to the area.
We have two more questions, I think, so we'll take those, and those will be our last questions. Over here, ma'am.
So, hi, I am the director of a teen center in Cicero. It's called the Canteen.
Oh,
And so we service, and I sit on the Onondaga, Syracuse Onondaga County Youth Board, and I'm the youth services coordinator for the Cicero Youth Bureau. We get a lovely population of young people that come looking for a community within such a big school district. And I just want to thank you that you're here, because I would like to really bring a lot more benefits and opportunities to the teens that I work with. So thank you.
Well, thank you for what you do. The canteen was actually highlighted in some of the early discussions, so I'd actually love to connect with you and talk more about how we can partner. Yeah.
Yep. Sir.
Hello, good evening. Hey, I just want to ask some questions about the process going forward for the company itself, Micron. Only because I was a part of a major merger and acquisition after the housing bubble. So our company was an international company, bought a company here in the US. Because the stock price dropped over 50%, it became a hostile takeover. We had plans to have 1,800 brand new jobs, well over 100,000. Those never happened. And then our 700 sales force got laid off a few years after the housing bubble. So from what I know and understand right now, we're going through a very similar thing. It's going to be as bad or worse than the housing bubble for real economic reasons. Is there anything in the plans or has been thought through? Micron went down very severely during the .com and the housing bubble for stock price. If you were approached and decided that you went through a buyout, does that affect the plans at all or modify them down the road?
So I'll go through our perspective, and then if Micron wants to add any flavor, they can. So the reports that you see related to the semiconductor industry being in a downturn, that's just factual, right? Those are that was baked. That information was baked into the timeline that we're working off of right now. It wasn't new that's not breaking news. The reality is, during the pandemic, just like we were buying things at the county level to make sure that in the event we needed more masking or more PPE for our community, the vendors of Micron and other companies were buying more chips. And the reality is they bought more chips than they needed to, and now there's an inventory challenge in the industry, which is working itself through. So I think that nothing has changed in our conversation with Micron related to timeline at all, because when we got down to the final meeting where we had an agreement, we already baked in the downturn into the new timeline. There was an old timeline before we had an announcement. So
the question was, if there's a merger and acquisition and Micron gets bought out, their stock price went down 90% twice, .com housing bubble. Right now, it's down almost 50%. It's going to go down at least 50% or more from what I know, and I'm involved in the stock market. I'm saying if there's a merger and acquisition and Micron gets bought out, we were a very big company, bought another company, became a hostile takeover. Is there anything in the agreement that the other company has to fulfill any or all of the same agreement if they get bought out as a stock?
Yeah. So I guess I don't know the legally fine print today. You're talking about the largest memory technology player whose stock was at $50 the day that we announced the price, and I think it was at 57 yesterday. As
It's
teased.
down almost 50% from the high a year and a half ago. I'm saying is the whole stock market is rolling over.
Listen,
I'm not saying this. I'm
not going to debate the stock market with you. I'm
not
just telling you
debating
the
it.
facts.
I'm not debating.
Okay.
I'm saying I went through this myself during the housing bubble.
Yeah.
I lost 2 jobs due to the lockdowns. Here, over $100,000 jobs I couldn't get because the companies pulled the jobs back. I lost a small business here due to the lockdowns. So I'm saying if something happens, I've been through it. The company, a major merger and acquisition, happened after the housing bubble crash. The stock price we bought was over 50% down. It became a hostile takeover. It's national news.
Okay, sir.
Does it
so we
change
got
the agreement at all?
I'm gonna see if Micron will comment on this. I don't know why they would, but if there is a bigger, you're saying if there's a bigger memory technology company that comes out of from nowhere, more than Micron, to buy them, would that mean that what would happen to the location at White Pine?
No, the agreement in basic, does it modify, changes that in writing anywhere we can see that it would modify, even a small way?
I don't know what the legalese documents are. Rob, if you want to try to take a snag at this. Rob's the general counsel for Micron. He's an executive officer.
So I think the real answer to your question is that the reason is going back to the reason why this facility is being built and being built here in the first place. It's about the future market of DRAM and where the industry, and Micron as an industry player, thinks DRAM is going to be and what the need for DRAM is going to be in the future. And that's why we're building a fab here in central New York. It's not any other reason. So anybody who would buy Micron, if that were to happen, and I will say that I think that's extraordinarily unlikely, but if a company was somehow able to buy Micron, they would be subject to the same industry dynamics and would be down a path where money has been spent here in central New York toward building a fab. And if some other company were to come and buy Micron, that doesn't change the industry dynamic and the need for DRAM, right?
Yeah, I didn't say the industry. I said the legal agreement, because this is what happened to our company. Things changed internally.
There isn't so there is no legal agreement that binds a future party that would acquire Micron that requires them to build here. Nobody is going to sign up to an agreement like that. No company ever would.
Okay, well, that's what everybody thought before the housing bubble happened. There's no housing bubble. That's all I'm saying. So when people say nothing can happen bad, I'm being in a good way because I lost 2 jobs during the lockdowns, 700 jobs during the housing bubble, 800 we didn't get, and I lost my small business here. So all I'm saying is I'm trying to be a good way of saying a devil's advocate just to prepare if something does that people won't be like, oh, we didn't know it would happen. We didn't prepare for it. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment.
Quickly, we're out of time.
No, it's going to be. Destroy Micron. How? Because they're not going to pay every one of their workers $100,000. I'm so sick of hearing everyone's got to make $100,000. Drive a smaller car for crying out loud. Number one, they say they're going to outdo you in the amount of pay for your people. Number one, and number two was what was the other? Oh, talent and pay. So people here think everyone's got to make a ton of money. Well, you're not even going to have a company.
Sir, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Remember.